get to your top story, and that is Prime Minister Modi, who's all set to visit Saudi Arabia for the third time. The last time he was in Saudi Arabia was back in 2019, and prior to that was 2016. He will be arriving in Jeddah for a two-day visit. This makes it the Prime Minister's first Indian leader who will be visiting Saudi Arabia's commercial hub in over 4 decades. Trade and investment, energy and defense, cooperation, as well as regional security situation and connectivity initiatives are expected to figure during the visit of the Prime Minister. Of course, he will be meeting with the leader of Saudi Arabia. We're talking about Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and NDTV is in fact on Ground Zero. We have my colleague Mohammed Ghazali, who is in Jeddah, and he gets us the latest as to what all can we expect during this two-day visit of Prime Minister Modi.
The deck is all set for Prime Minister Modi's two-day visit to Saudi Arabia. Right now we are in Jeddah in Hotel Carlton, where this community center is there, and you can see behind me, this is how Prime Minister will be welcomed when he arrives here. The Indian community members are going to be present here who will be meeting the Prime Minister and greeting him here. So this is how the enclosures have been made. This is one kind of poster you see, Salam Modi in 3 different languages, and then you have different enclosures here. You see these men are still fixing it up before the arrival of Prime Minister, and Saudi Arabia houses more than 2.3 million Indians, a strongest Indian community abroad in any other country. So people from different walks of life, different profession, they all will be here. And also because Prime Minister is visiting Saudi Arabia after 6 years, so there is going to be a huge gathering here of the Indian community to meet the Prime Minister. And as per the schedule, after the meeting of community members, the Prime Minister will then head to the Royal Palace, where he will be meeting his counterpart, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who also happens to be the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. And then they will be having the bilateral talks. The talks will revolve around 2 specific areas: economic ties, trade and investment, as well as defense cooperation. Besides that, Prime Minister will also be apprised about significant global developments where Saudi Arabia is a stakeholder and where India has also played a silent role. First, Ukraine-Russia conflict, because Saudi Arabia is the place where a lot of mediation talks have happened in the past several weeks between Russia and Ukraine, and as well as West Asia conflict, Israel and Palestine. That conflict has been going on for more than 1 year now, and Saudi Arabia's stand is somewhat similar to India's stand when it comes to Israel-Palestine conflict, that there should be 2-state solution. Then we have maritime security, another area of concern for both the parties, because Jeddah, the port city, is located on the coast of Red Sea, the same Red Sea which has come under intense attack from Houthis, who are a terror group from Yemen. So India is also an affected party when it comes to attack from the Houthis in Gulf of Aden or Red Sea, because it has impacted the maritime trade as well as security. So these are the areas where both the parties will hold dialogue. And then we have the bilateral talk. We have a strategic partnership council, a group of ministers from both sides headed by Prime Minister Modi, and MBS Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince, will head a long meeting. And after that, Prime Minister will be having his dinner at Royal Palace. And this is how this event or this entire trip assumes significance, because both the countries are looking to deepen their ties. In Jeddah, Mohammed Ghazali, NDTV.
And in other news is US Vice President JD Vance, who met with Prime Minister Modi on Monday. The two leaders welcomed the progress in the negotiations for a US-India bilateral trade agreement. They formally announced the finalization of the terms of reference for the negotiations, and US President's, this is the Vice President's office, released a statement post the dinner at Prime Minister's residence, and I quote, Vance and Prime Minister Modi welcomed significant progress in the negotiations for a US-India bilateral trade agreement and formally announced the finalization of the terms of reference for the negotiations, laying down a roadmap for further discussions about our shared economic priorities. He will be visiting the Taj Mahal, and that will remain closed for the general public on Wednesday from sunrise till the United States Vice President's proposed visit to the monument is over. Prior to his visit to Agra, he will be, of course, he had landed in Jaipur last night. He will be delivering a speech at the Rajasthan International Centre, followed by meeting with the governor and the chief minister. But he'll kickstart his Jaipur visit today with a visit to Amer Fort, where he will be greeted by 2 decorated elephants. My colleague Harsha has the details. Harsha, get us details of the plan of course, US Vice President JD Vance, who landed yesterday. It was the Chief Minister who was there to receive him. But take us through also the decorated story of the two elephants, Chanda and Pushpa, that are going to be receiving the US Vice President while he will be, visiting the Amer Fort.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think Chanda and Pushpa are going to be the highlight for the Vance family, especially for the young children, because they are quite young, and this is a trip to familiarize them with their Indian roots, as the State Department has told us. Of course, what is on the cards today? Well, it's a combination of leisure and business, I would say. About 8:30 in the morning, they will leave for the Amer Fort. They will spend a good hour and a half probably at the Amer Fort. Now they're going to go up in a cart all the way up to the fort, because remember, it's a hill fort. It's a 12th century fort which is situated on the hill. It was the capital of the Kachwaha kings before they moved down to the city of Jaipur, which I always tell people is the first planned city of medieval India. It was planned by Savai Jai Singh in 1727. But in Amer, there are various courtyards. So when they go into the Jaleb Chowk, which is the first courtyard in Amer, which was actually kept as a place where the troops would have a fall-in. So there, Vice President Vance and his family will be greeted by the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister. And there are a series of folk performances there. So there will be the Kalbelia dance, very colorful. It's done by the Kalbelia tribe. There will be the traditional Rajasthani Ghumar, which is a dance of slow, graceful hand movements. And there will be the Kachi Ghodi, which is a vigorous dance of a folk performer who gets into something which is like a horse and he does a dance. So I think the children and the family are going to enjoy that. After that, the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister will take their leave. And then the Vice President's family with their staff will go into the Amer Fort. So they will. So where they have the first place they will enter will be the Diwan-e-Aam. Then it will be the Diwan-e-Khas, and in the Diwan-e-Khas, the highlight, again a highlight, is going to be the Sheesh Mahal. Now remember, for all of you who've seen Mughal-e-Azam, that beautiful song, Pyar Kiya To Darna Kiya, well, that song was picturized on something like the Sheesh Mahal. So that's the Amer Fort, but before that, there's going to be a greeting by two lovely pachyderms. They're called Chanda and Pushpa. And I caught up with them just last evening as they were getting ready for the Vice President's visit. So let's listen in to what Chanda, Pushpa and the family of elephants have to say. It's going to be a very special welcome for US Vice President Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance and her children by these two very special people here behind me, elephants, Pushpa and Chanda. Now, Chanda is 28 years old. She's very, very good-natured. And next to her is Pushpa, who's a lot younger. She's 19, but equally well-natured. And they are going to be welcoming the Vice President and his family. I have with me Ballu Khan, who is their owner. Ballu ji, किस तरह का तैयारी ये करेंगे और क्या होने वाला है, क्या करेंगे ये लोग?
मैडम, अभी शाम को जो है हम हाथियों के साथ में तालाब पे लेके जाएंगे और इनकी रंगोली तैयार करेंगे और जो ज्वेलरी है
क्या पहनाते हैं ज्वेलरी में
इनको पायजे पहनाते हैं, कटला है, दुमची है,
दुमची क्या होता है?
दुमची जो पीछे दुमके लगती है चांदी की, वो है, और कनगोजा यहाँ लटकता है कान के इस तरफ।
तो दिस इज ऑल रियल सिल्वर ज्वेलरी?
ये चांदी की ज्वेलरी है, करीब 350 साल राजा महाराजाओं के ज़माने की है और उसको संजो के रख रखी थी। अब 2001 में जब हमारे प्रेसिडेंट अमेरिका के प्रेसिडेंट आए थे तो हमारे दरबार साहब ने वो ज्वेलरी निकलाई। तो उसके
तो ये आपके संरक्षण में रहती है ज्वेलरी या पैलेस में रहती है?
नहीं, हमारे पास में ही है साहब, हमें तो दरबार साहब के ज़माने से मिली भी, हमारे दादा पड़दादा।
तो ये दिस इज एन ओल्ड ट्रेडिशन। यहाँ पे आमेर में हाथी की सवारी बहुत पुरानी परंपरा है
जी, 300-350 साल पुरानी परंपरा है, उसको संजो के रख रखी है। और सन 2000 में जब अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट आए थे तो दरबार साहब ने हमारे भवानी सिंह जी ने राइट कराई थी। उसके बाद जो है पहला मौका है जो आज आ रहे हैं।
तो यहाँ पे दे विल जस्ट बी ग्रीटेड, उनको ग्रीटिंग देंगे। तो आपने किस तरह से इसको, चंदा मैंने सुना है कि यू हैव गॉट हर रेडी, शी इज गोइंग टू ऑफर अ गार्लैंड टू द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, माला पहनाएंगी वो?
जी, ये माला पहनाएगी चंदा।
कितना जल्दी सीख गई है, आपने सिखाया इसको?
हाँ, 3 दिन में सीख गई साहब ये तो, क्योंकि ये बहुत फ्रेंडली है, हमारे घरेलू आती हैं, घर में इनकी देख रेख होती है, तो बच्चों की तरह पालते हैं तो इनको सिखाने में बहुत ईजी होता है।
And then elephant is a very intelligent animal. Now Pushpa is going to do the blessing. Can you tell me कैसे करेगी ये blessing? आप बताना. So here's Pushpa and she's going to bless. Oops, there you go. So she's blessing me, and that's exactly how she's going to be blessing the Vice President and his family. So very sweet and friendly elephant. And that's a wonderful salute by both Chanda and Pushpa, ready and geared up for the Vice President's visit. And they're going to be in their bridal finery tomorrow. It's indeed going to be a unique experience for the Vice President and his family. In Jaipur, with camera person Jasraj, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
Right, Harsha, thank you so much for getting us all those details. And now let's just get you information coming in from the United States in regard to the Harvard University, the world's wealthiest university, has filed a federal lawsuit against the Trump administration to stop billions of dollars in the proposed cuts. The suit filed on Monday is part of a feud that escalated last week when the elite institution rejected a list of demands that the Trump administration said was designed to curb diversity initiatives and fight anti-Semitism at the school. The president last week ordered the freezing of $2.2 billion of federal funding and also threatened the university's tax-exempt status as well. And shifting focus now to Canada, and the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has said that his party will release its costed platform today on Tuesday, giving voters a sense of what the government led by him would do and where would it cut to pay for it all. Now, the platform release comes the day after advance polls close and less than a week before Election Day. He is the last major party leader to release his plan after Liberal leader Mark Carney and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh launched theirs over the weekend. My colleague Maha Siddiqui joining us from Vancouver. Maha, this comes really on the heels of the Liberals and the New Democrats. They released their costed platforms over the weekend, making the Conservative the last major party to reveal its spending plans, of course, including a promise to build 2.3 million new homes in a matter of 5 years.
Yes, absolutely, Divya. Tuesday is when the Conservative Party is going to release its costed platform. And we do have a rough idea of what it's going to look like because they have been announcing certain plans, as you pointed out, with regards to housing, with regards to putting more money in the pockets of the middle class. They are saying that there'll be about $40 billion annually for the middle class, as compared to what the Liberals have announced. They have said that there will be, for the middle class, 1% reduction in the lowest tax bracket, which will put about $825 for the families of, for double income families rather, in a year. So clearly, as compared to the Liberals, the Conservatives are putting in some of these promises that seem very high value in terms of the cost or the spending on the government if they come to power. So the overall budget from the announcements made looks to be around $140 billion over the 4 years period, as compared to the Conservatives who've announced $129 billion as far as their spending is concerned, with around $35 billion for the first year of being in power. Apart from the middle class, housing is one important aspect. Apart from that, increasing the defense funding for NATO, about 2% is what both sides are promising. That is both the Conservatives and the Liberals. But how they are going to increase the spending is something that is not clear on either side, because at the present moment, it's about 1.4% of Canadian GDP that they put in NATO defense. So broadly, these are the aspects that have been highlighted. One important aspect that the Conservatives are saying is that they will go with something called pay-as-you-go, or dollar for dollar. That is, each dollar that is spent will, there will be a cut in spending on some other program. So it appears and this is a concern by some, that some of the social programs that are already in place could find cuts, and that is a concern for some voters. Divya?
Right, Maha, thank you so much for joining us with all those details. Well, of course, that plan that's going to be released today, all eyes on that. Thank you for joining us. Moving on now, in fact, let's just get you news coming in from China that has threatened countermeasures against countries that appease the United States by striking trade deals with Washington at Beijing's expense. The warning follows a report that the United States plans to measure this is a pressure as far as nations to curb trade with China if they want to avoid huge new US tariffs on their exports announced by President Donald Trump earlier this month. And Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will be visiting China today. The Foreign Ministry has gone on to say that ahead of that third round of nuclear talks between Tehran and Washington due on Saturday in Oman. This is a trip to Moscow, of course, last week that took place. Araghchi has gone ahead and said that Tehran always closely consults with its friends. That includes Russia and China over the nuclear issue. And with that, we're slipping a very short break. Back with a whole lot more on the other side. You're watching NDTV World. I'm Divya Vada. Stay with us.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer. From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Welcome back. You're watching NDTV World. Let's get you the latest as far as President Donald Trump is concerned, who's backed US Defense Secretary. We're talking about Pete Hegseth. After reports that military attack details were shared in a group chat that included Hegseth's wife, brother, and personal lawyer. The controversy comes a month after a journalist was added to a single group chat in which US cabinet officials, including Hegseth, discussed plans to attack Houthi rebels in Yemen. In the second signal chat, Hegseth reportedly shared information about airstrikes against Yemen. To know more on this, we have Glenn Call, former Deputy National Intelligence Officer for Transitional Threats. This includes terrorism on the National Intelligence Council career, CIA officer, author as well. Thank you so much, Glenn, for speaking with us this morning here in India. Of course, very sensitive information, according to reports, have been shared in the second chat on Signal. Of course, Donald Trump there backing his defense secretary, saying that he's doing a great job, and despite what appears to be attacks from disgruntled employees. That is how Trump has reacted. Can we expect some kind of action to be taken against Pete?
Well, when the praise of a besieged official become ever stronger, then you realize that the pressure on that individual to resign is growing, and he'll be praised until he's let go and thanked in some face-saving way. I'm not certain that that will happen, but that's the standard pattern, really, of trying to protect someone who's under trouble. It's an astounding series of events. Let me give one example. The Serbs 30 years ago worked out when the Americans and NATO were going to bomb them because of the problems in Kosovo. They worked out when the attack was going to come because they set somebody in a car in front of Fort Bragg military base in the United States. And they noticed to watch going in and out. And they noticed that people didn't go home one evening, and that there was a higher number of pizza orders because people were working late. And they then concluded that the attack would come in the early hours, and that's exactly what happened. So you don't need classified information to learn intelligence that can cost lives if it's information that you learn about an attack. And what Hegseth did is dramatically worse than buying some pizza.
Right, of course, but this is the information shared, of course, with his family members, including his wife and his brother. Thank you so much, Glenn, for joining us this morning in India.
Thank you.
Let's just also switch tracks to more news coming in, and this is in regard to the Asia-Pacific markets that were subdued this morning, tracking Wall Street sell-off after US President Donald Trump doubled down on his pressure campaign on Federal Reserve Chairman. We're talking about Jerome Powell, and of course Japan's has also seen, as well as the topics were trading flat. South Korea has also seen a small cap that was marginally lower, and earlier US stocks fell again on Monday as President Donald Trump wrapped up his attacks on Federal Reserve Chair, raising questions about the central bank's independence, while traders received few signs of progress on global trade talks. Pope Francis, who died on Monday at the age of 88, well, the cause of his death has now been revealed by the Vatican. It was a stroke that put him into a coma that led to heart failure. History's first Latin American pontiff charmed the world with his humble style and concern for the poor, but alienated many conservatives with critiques of capitalism and climate change. He had been suffering from multiple issues, and he was admitted to the hospital on the 14th of February this year for a respiratory crisis that turned into double pneumonia. He did spend 38 days in the hospital, but that had little to do with what happened now. Of course, this is a heart failure that led to his death, is what the Vatican is saying. He last appeared on Sunday, Easter Sunday, and he did, of course, also meet with US Vice President. There's no date for the funeral that has been announced. Yes, the next Pope is still to be decided. The US President Donald Trump has said that he will be attending the funeral in Rome for Pope Francis, while the government here in India has declared 3 days of state mourning as a mark of respect of the passing away of Pope Francis.
Choosing a new pope is an elaborate affair. Once the last rites of the pope is completed, the College of Cardinals is tasked with electing the new leader. In theory, any Roman Catholic man who has been baptized can be considered for election to become pope. The cardinals, however, prefer to select one of their own. Voting happens inside a guarded environment, and the interaction of cardinals from the outer world is restricted to remove the chances of collusion of votes. A 2/3 majority has to be achieved. Currently, there are about 140 cardinals who are eligible to vote, with each cardinal voting through a ballot paper. No one can get inside the Sistine Chapel during this selection process. One gets to know the result through the smoke that comes out from the Vatican's rooftop. If a pope hasn't been chosen, the ballots will be burnt along with a chemical that makes the smoke black. White smoke indicates the selection of the new head of Roman Catholics. Within 30 to 60 minutes of the release of white smoke, the newly elected pope appears on the balcony overlooking the St. Peter's Square, signaling a new chapter in the history of the Vatican. Bureau Report for NDTV World.
From across Italy, across Europe, and increasingly from around the world are gathering here in Rome and in Vatican City, behind me after the news of Pope Francis's death was announced on Monday morning local time. In terms of his funeral service, we'll be getting more details in the coming days. But Pope Francis was a pope who lived a relatively simple life compared to some of his predecessors, and it seems that he's very much hoping that that wish will be respected in death as well, opting for a simple remembrance of his life, doing away with some of the traditions that are usually seen when it comes to the funeral of a pope. Of course, there are questions now as well about who the next pope will be and who cardinals will pick when they form a conclave to appoint a successor. Pope Francis was, of course, the first pope to come from the southern hemisphere. A lot of people wondering whether that might be something that is repeated or whether they will revert to the tradition of picking a pope from either Italy or from Europe more widely. All of that to be discussed in the coming days and weeks, but what we are expecting here in the shorter term is people to continue to arrive here in Rome to pay their respects to Pope Francis, who has died at the age of 88. John Beaver, NDTV, Rome.
Pope Francis, who was the first non-European pope in nearly 1300 years, died at the age of 88. His funeral is going to be decided, and Donald Trump will be attending his funeral. With that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. News and updates will continue on the other side. Thank you for
watching. In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
You've been nominated several times for the Grammys, but what it's been like the last 25 years, because music is also a fairly competitive field. It's of course the search to find your identity is there. You want to do that. You want to probably isolate yourself from the noise. But at the end of the day, the arts as a field is also a very competitive space, isn't it?
I didn't go into music to become an artist. I'd never imagined I'd make an album. That wasn't why I went into music. I went to music to sing. You know what I would do when I started singing? I became a music beggar. I truly would. I heard, for the very first time, I heard Pandit Jasraj sing. And I heard him, I was sitting in the first row because I was a patron of this arts organization. I didn't know who he was. I never heard Hindustani music. I'd been in Brazilian, Carnatic, all of that, but never much with Hindustani. I sat in the first row, and then he started singing. And then for the next 4 hours or 3 hours that he sang, I must have cried through the entire concert of his because it was so beautiful, so magical. And in my mind, I said to myself, I want to learn from him. And, like this, but of course, most of these people take students when you're
They're
5
young
and they live with them and they travel with them and do all of this. But the universe has a way of working. And I've got to tell you a very wonderful story about Pandit Jasraj, who I wanted to learn from, but I didn't.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Show. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy. US Vice President JD Vance to visit historical sites in Jaipur. This after he held high-level talks with Prime Minister Modi, and Prime Minister Modi will be on a two-day visit to Saudi Arabia. We also get you